Welcome to Talking in Stations podcast, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Matterall here with Elise Randolph
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
and Hateless.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
As you know, Elise, a master at all things EVE, but particularly nullsec and Alliance tournament issues, which we'll talk about today. And Hateless, a master of missions and all things Care Bearer HiSec. And I hope you don't mind me saying that.
You can.
Such
That's
you,
a
I
very
love the way you own it
big,
usually.
big way to put it. I'm just another player.
Okay. Today we're going to talk about Keepstar that went down in, I believe it was T5Z, right next to 1DQ. We'll also cover a little bit of news with Snuff and Siege Green going at it unexpectedly this morning. Explosive Velocity, the new update that's been called for December. And we'll check in on the last update from November, the ESS, see what's going on there. And we'll get to some Alliance tournaments and the partnership program. That's what we'll talk about today on TIS. Okay, Elise, let's start with and chime in if you want, Hateless. And McLeod's here as engineer, as always. Keepstar in T5Z.
Yeah, so yesterday, or I guess the day before yesterday, the PAPI forces dropped a Keepstar, and it successfully went through the anchoring process in T5CI. Obviously, there's then a 24-hour cooldown, and then you have to put the core in, and it comes online. We've seen this song and dance before from PAPI. Usually, goons have destroyed it, rather the Imperium have destroyed anchoring Keepstars, but that was when it was the first one. This time, the Imperium did not form up. The PAPI forces had just tons and tons of people. They were really amped up to drop a Keepstar right next to Goon staging in 1DQ. So Goons chose not to take that fight head on. They said, hey, you know what? There's already Keepstar in Delve. We're not going to Zerg 1,000 battleships at this one to keep it out. They obviously have a plan for it. But yeah, so PAPI forces are pretty happy, to say the least, that they now have a Keepstar in T5Z. They've been moving into it all. They spent all day yesterday doing move ops. People are still moving ships one by one, taking bridges, moving capitals and stuff. So it's just a straight convoy moving right next to Goon staging in 1DQ. So this is going to be a pretty heated next couple weeks, right? Because you have both of these huge forces who for months have been at each other's throats. Now they are separated by a few thousand kilometers, right? The Keepstar, the PAPI Keepstar, it's not even just at a safe spot somewhere in T5Z. It's on the 1DQ gate grid. So insanely close. It's going to be wild to see what happens, right? Because from here on out, a lot of the fighting has been for these smaller structures and for iHubs and different just infrastructure around, jump bridges, sino jammers, sino beacons. So it's whoever forms first has this advantage, or rather, whoever can get to the system first has an advantage when it comes to when the skirmishes break out. Now it's going to be whoever has an active FC on at the time, because if the Imperium starts forming, the PAPI can form instantly, and they're right next to each other. There's no way to move. The PAPI will have to, the Imperium will just have to either burn through T5Z or take a bridge out, and then when they undock, everyone gets to see it. So it's going to be a rapid response small fleets for the next couple weeks here. We also saw PAPI forces just in Tosis, 3 constellations worth of stuff in terms of infrastructure.
That was earlier in the week.
So goons got to defend their home now.
I think they did. So I think they did some yesterday as well.
Oh, really?
Their
Okay.
big form up. I could be wrong. I think it's the area that's closer to Fountain. Goblin sent out a ping to the Horde members saying, "Hey, we're moving to T5Z. Your focus is going to be on, getting some infrastructure here, and we're also going to be keeping an eye on Fountain." Goblins put a huge emphasis on maybe not retaking Fountain, but attacking the people living there. That was the first theater of war for a lot of the PAPI forces, right? They were split up. The legacy side stayed in Esoteria, fighting over the G Magic Gate. and the Panda Fam side went over to Fountain to conquer that from Initiative. When the sides merged, Initiative went to Fountain, took it all back, and people are actually living in it now. People are ratting in it now. There's quite a good amount of ISK being earned in that region. So,
what people are
Goblins,
those? Would that be Initiative or other people?
Initiative and others, other members of the Imperium. I don't think the Initiative do all that much ratting themselves, but I know people like Lawn and stuff are in there ratting it up. So if you look at, you can actually, with the ESS changes, you can actually look at the banks from all of Fountain. You can say, hey, this reserve bank's pretty high. Someone's been here and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see. But
I think it's cool.
Goblins.
I think it's really cool. We can see where people are ratting and how much they're ratting, which is really useful data.
Yeah, it really is. It is very interesting to see. So it's, instead of just like Dotland killed in the last 3 hours type thing, you can actually see how it's going hour by hour in most cases. But yeah, Gobbins made the note in his little ping to Horde there that the Initiative, they don't have an umbrella or really a really solid way to respond to people from Delve into Fountain. Especially with this T5Z move, because the Imperium would, if the Imperium forms, the PAPI can form quicker or at the same time and just bridge they're one gate closer. So
Yeah, it seems
an interesting dynamic.
It seems like we're seeing attack, counterattack, counterattack, and now this is the fourth stage of that. If you break it down, PAPI picks up, takes off, moves into Aquarius, Delve, Fountain, attacks the area. Esoteria opens up as a front behind the lines, right? So Test is now having two fronts. Bastion and Rebecca hired for that. And then you have Stained Russians helping out with that. So you see Imperium kind of striking back in the backfield. And then you have basically Test double down and say, yeah, we're just moving to Delve, right? So Esoteria is less important. Boom, you move a Keepstar right next to 1DQ. That announces a ton of intention. And that puts Horde in the position to strike back at Initiative, because Initiative has gone over to Esoteria as well to kind of open up that front. So it might say like, okay, if you're going to try to keep us busy in Esoteria, we're going to try to keep you busy in Fountain.
Yeah, it was. Let's just say that was a really shrewd move by the Imperium there to send the Initiative over. I know the Initiative always has been like floating around doing stuff, but giving them an objective, giving them a set of things to do, and just unleashing them onto this region of pretty much defenseless region. It's great. It's a great move. You love to see it because it has been a bit of a thorn. It hasn't been like debilitating for the Test at all, right, or any of the PAPI forces, but it has been a constant annoyance, a thorn in their side. They're like, oh, we got to go back to do this, and then we can focus on this. Oh, we got to go back to do this and focus on that.
Yeah,
and it really also drives the Imperium narrative, right? So what the Imperium are trying to do is they're trying to break up the attackers that are fighting them right now. They're trying to sow seeds of discord, and the low hanging fruit that they're going for now is, or that they have been going for is, hey guys, Test got you into this mess, and they're not even showing up to stuff. So why are you guys helping them? And they're just hoping someone, if they shake that tree a little bit harder, something's gonna fall out of it, and they can go back and say, oh well, Test are out saving their homes. What happens when we go to your homes and stuff like that? So they're trying real hard to shake that tree, get some of that numbers down.
You can see it in the propaganda too. It's like the dinosaur laying on the couch while these guys are carrying it. All caricatures of the allies of Test.
Exactly, right.
And you see it in the rhetoric as well. Yeah, so Bastion opened up Esoteria by taking over a little bit of territory. It looks like Stained Russians helped out there. Then Initiative got called in to really rip that place open, which is possible. And despite what Vili says about it being just an afterthought, a lot of guys still have their stuff over there. That's still considered their home. That's not something that you can just gloss over. And it hasn't really been dealt with effectively. There have been attempts to try to recapture Esoteria, but the best we've heard about it on the PAPI side is Ron USMC saying like he really loves that theater because everybody's so polite. Because Bastion's so polite and they're like, good game. And, it's a nice, relaxed part of the war as opposed to the raging barnhouse fire in Delve.
And the scale is much different too, right? You're talking In Delve, a big form up might be 1,000 versus 1,000 for like a medium scale, and like 4,000 versus 3,000 for the giga huge scale. The stuff going down in Esoteria, it's like 200 man fleets roaming around, like crawling into each other, like 100 versus 100, 50 versus 50. The scale's so much smaller. You kind of get a different sense of fighting, and it does feel like you have more agency over your decision and your ship choices when you remember those fleets. So like what you do matters a little bit more instead of just being a pawn on the chessboard being moved around. So I can see how people are having a lot of fun. But you
Yeah.
know, fun aside, it's still a significant development, right? It's still something that the Imperium are trying to take away from the PAPI side. They're not just rolling over waiting for the numbers to drop. They're actively out there trying to do things, and they've moved some of their best fighters out there, which is really neat. If you told me a few months ago that Bastion and the Initiative would be teaming up to take over Esoteria, I'd laugh. But that's exactly what's happening, and Bastion really led the way here. And I'm glad the Initiative jumped on
Yeah.
because that's a scale of war that they're suited for the best. They're some of the best in the game at that. Right? You have got the best skirmish FCs. You've got the best like small medium gang FCs out there. And the same with the pilots. So put them in a situation where they can thrive. This is something I had been personally like champing at the bit for like weeks and weeks. So glad to see it happen. It's better than the initiative just being in Raven number 4 being hurled at a Keepstar, right?
Right.
They've showed that they're willing to do that, but that's not where they're best suited.
Yeah. And you know, from my past experience, like 100 versus 100 or 200 versus 200, you play at full speed. There's no tie-dye. To me, those were always the best fights, the most exciting fights. With good FCs, everything feels really good at that scale. And I can't say the same for bigger.
Yeah, exactly. So the bigger fights, I mean, there's more strategy involved, but in the smaller, I can't believe we're calling them smaller now, right?
Yeah.
In my day, these were like the big fights too. So the smaller fights, like the sub 100 man fights, you just feel, like I said, you have more agency over your ship. Like what you do as a pilot matters more to the outcome, and it's fun in that regard. So I'm glad people are having fun, but I'm glad to see that the Imperium are striking back a little bit, because it can get really out of control for them really quick here.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the biggest capital force the game has ever seen. Now living next door to your staging. Granted, your staging system has more Keepstars and faction fortizars than pretty much any other region in the game. So this is a heavily fortified area, right? We're gonna have to see. We were chatting a little bit before the show. Like this is a potentially very dangerous spot for both groups, right? The Imperium obviously have this behemoth at their door, pounding, ready to get in, taking away everything else behind them, and just burning the farmlands. But the same thing, you have PAPI, you just have this huge morale move of we're next door to 1DH, or rather 1DQ. The big fight's got to happen soon. So like these guys are going to be amped up. They're ready for something. Maybe someone makes a mistake. Maybe someone gets a little bit too over eager. You really have to manage your expectations here if you're PAPI, because
Mm-hmm.
if you go in and try and one shot 1DQ and either it fails or you lose a lot and it fails, or just something goes wrong on your side,
Or even if it's a tie.
yeah, you've got egg on your face, and all that momentum that you build up, all that slow, steady burn that you've been doing for weeks and weeks amounts to nothing. The clock resets, everything gets wiped clean, and you have to start all over again and build that momentum
Yeah.
up piece by
Yeah.
piece by piece.
We were talking about what some of the pitfalls might be, because this move looks like, if you on the outside of it, it's like all gravy for PAPI. They just put a Keepstar deep into Delve. Now, what's the narrative going to be about? Well, you haven't reached us yet. You know, like there is that funny. I've seen some funny propaganda recently, and there was one on Reddit. It was the Black Knight from Monty Python, and you had you had the Black Knight with all his limbs cut off because King Arthur had cut off all his limbs, and every one of those limbs was a region lost. You know, and the Black Knight was the bees, and he's like, you know, I've just begun to fight or something, you know, coward. So at a certain point, that narrative starts to run out. This is a big move. They moved right into 1DQ, but this is rife with problems for PAPI. You were saying,
yeah, or not problems, right? We don't want to
or
spin too hard
expectation problems.
of the way, but it is potentially dangerous, right? Because, like we were saying, all the expectations you've been just slow and steady dismantling this region, taking away infrastructure from Delve, taking everything around the sacked area, taking everything around the 49 area. You got a Keepstar down in 49, which is huge. You start taking away the areas that goons can rat in. You force them to move to E30, which, by the way, moves that move of their super cap forces from DW to E30 looks really smart. McLeod had mentioned it before the show, and it's not something that had really dawned on me. Um, moving them from DW over to E30 makes a lot more sense now, or rather, it works in their benefit, right? Because you don't want to have your super caps and your sub caps separated by a gate where your enemy lives with everything. That's potentially disastrous. Now you've got a little bit more wiggle room there, a few gates buffer, plus all that area behind E30 hasn't been touched yet. It is an area that the Imperium can still rat in. They can still earn ISK in. It's just good space, and it's strategically kind of significant, even though it is a bit of a dead end pocket there. But yeah, PAPI, if they don't play their cards right, if they get a little bit too overeager, and they do have personalities on their sides that have been known to get overeager before, if that does happen, like we said, a mistake could like blow up in their face and backfire really, really badly. They've been surprisingly like poised and just playing everything by the book ever up to here. So I'm sure that they're all on the same page here, but the Imperium are probably just like hoping beyond hope that someone makes a mistake right next door to them and they can capitalize and just start over a little bit, because right now that snowball is starting to pick up some speed coming towards their face a little bit.
Yeah. Did we talk about, you weren't here last week, but I wanted your opinion on the big announcement that came out of Imperium was that they were going to do something called Helm's Deep. The strategy was to go into a bottleneck system and protect the hell out of that, jam up everything behind you so they can't get past you theoretically, and make a last stand there. What do you think of that move?
It's risky, but it's also, so if you make E30 your Helm's Deep, you've got a lot of outs, right? You've got NPC Delve that's right there, right? You can bridge there pretty much all over through it. So the idea of it is very nice. It really rallies up your base as well, right? Because you're like, this is where we fight, this is where they die. You get to do all that stuff. You get to do all the Lord of the Rings memes, so everyone's gonna have fun with that.
Surprised there were very, very little of those. I didn't see much, except that you don't have a Gandalf for this or something. So
yeah, exactly.
People didn't do much with it, which is interesting.
That is all to come, right? So that requires, so right now the PAPI response to that I think has been really hilarious. They've just kind of ignored it. They're like, okay, go chill in Helm's Deep. We're burning the rest of your lands.
I heard that. I heard that what happened was there was going to be a big announcement, and of course, PAPI leaders have spies in the announcement. And the word from, I won't say who, said they were waiting because they didn't actually know what the move was going to be. They thought it would be some move they hadn't anticipated. And then when they announced Helm's Deep, they all burst into laughter. And I thought, well, that's not a good sign if your enemy starts laughing at your battle plans, but.
Yeah, it is a little awkward right now because both sides feel like they're winning on like the highest high level of strategy levels, right? So like Villy and Headliner and everyone else in the war room on the PAPI side are like, okay, they're doing stuff that just gives us free path to what we want to do. Where's the trap here? And the Imperium are doing the exact same thing. They're like, okay, well, we just did this huge announcement, and they're not playing into it at all. They're just kind of ignoring it. What's going on? So both sides definitely feel like they have the strategic advantage and the strategic superiority in their plan, and it just time will tell which side is right. They can't both be right. Like there's a lot of situations in Eve where these alliances and these mega coalitions put themselves in a position where they can't lose, where both sides are right. You can always get a win out of something somewhere. But this is one of those situations where they're diametrically opposed. So one side is going to be right and one side is going to be wrong. And when that comes to a head, things are going to spiral out of control wildly for the side that was wrong, because there's only so far that you can backpedal, right?
Well, we're hearing right now that a test Keepstar just went down in DTAC W. So again, this proximity is risky on both sides. That's just a reminder. They're undocking Titans. I don't know why, probably to save it or to save the objective. We'll try to get more information as the show goes on.
Yeah, so that's just another thing. What this has been the PAPI plan from all along, right? Just plant Keepstar after Keepstar closer and closer to these like strategically important systems, and force them to make a mistake, or force them to deal with it.
Isn't planting these Keepstars, I know it's expensive, but isn't planting these Keepstars cost effective in doing damage to them? So they're winning out in the S war in these battles, aren't they? So it's worth it to keep dropping Keepstars to continue doing damage, because that's all they want to do. They want to bash fleets. They want things to die, and that's the only way to start or to exhaust resources. And goons have a lot of resources, and the only way to do is just to bash at them and keep on bashing and bashing and bashing and bashing and bashing, right?
So yeah, pretty much that's what they're hoping for. That's what the dynamic was early on. But it looks like there's already a test dead rag that happened in DTAC W. So I think that's might be what they're undocking the Titans for. Obviously, it's hard as this is happening live as we're doing this show.
Yeah.
But this is the exact mistake that we were just talking about, right? You don't want to see this happen when you're right next door to the goons, or rather the Imperium, because they can go this. They can kill your Titan under your nose, and then they get a huge win. And that snowball that's hurling towards them slows down a little bit, loses a little bit of snow and ice, so it's not nearly as fast and painful if it hits. So this is just the dynamic that we set up.
Well, this is part of probably our best guess is people are moving in with their big assets. So this may be some guy that moved in a little unprotected. He got hit with a dread bomb, which should have been expected. And right now, our latest report is NC Dot is cleaning the field of dreads and test to scramble Titans or super caps to help out. Just make sure that there's a few less dreads for that to happen again, because it can happen again. That proximity is really dangerous, not just for the Imperium, but definitely for the people moving in. And when you're moving, your guard is down a little bit. You have that feeling of omnipotence, like nobody can possibly insult you. But fact is, like, you're up for grabs. If you're not doing this right, you're up for grabs.
Yeah. So I mean, it's tricky. It's a very dangerous place to be. You have to be on your toes. You can't let that hubris get to you, right? Hubris will level all the momentum you've made.
So this Titan, Reese just mentioned it. It was on a gate. What is a Titan doing on a gate in this situation?
It almost certainly got fleet warped there by a spy.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's
we've seen two misclicks in this war that way. People accidentally warped to a gate when they didn't mean to.
The initiative did it earlier in Fountain. They just warped to the wrong. One guy warped to the wrong gate with two Titans. This guy, he probably got fleet warped off, or he just clicked wrong, right? But the Imperium were there to capitalize on it. That's the important thing,
right?
If you see the Imperium haven't been fighting too much in this last week and a half, they're waiting, right? They're waiting for their moment to strike back so they can use their war chest most effectively. And I'd say this is an effective use of it, right?
Yeah, we're hearing it was a mistaken warp. So yeah, we've seen that before in this fight.
Yeah. So these things do happen, especially on move days, right? Move days are a little chaotic. So yeah, it is fun to see that both sides have now made this mistake.
I wonder how much of that is like memory reflex, like you're not quite thinking right, or you're on the wrong screen because you're moving subcaps at the same time, because it just seems like such an odd thing to do, but it definitely has happened before.
It's 75 billion-esque for the whole. You should probably double check what you're doing when you're moving it around, but
that price is going up too.
It's going up.
There's one thing about resource redistribution. The super capitals especially are getting incredibly. No one's building them right now. Everyone's just going through stockpiles and people that are coming back and selling Titans and stuff. I was talking to Kenneth. He was like, "Yeah, the build cost right now is like 120 bill for these things. I was like, okay, well,
Wow.
that's so yeah, they're working through their stockpiles. Crucially, though, Keepstars, they haven't really gone up in price because they're based on salvage, not minerals, salvage and other components and stuff like that that aren't minerals. So the only thing that increased their price is that quantum core, that 30 billion ISK little thing that you have to plug in there to turn your Keepstar on. So those things are relatively cheaper now. They're still a pretty penny, but they're cheaper now than like a Titan or a couple supers.
Right. We talked about this, that as scarcity comes in for minerals, and we've seen it on the monthly economic report, the mineral index, right? The mineral index is higher than it has ever been in the history of this game. And that's not typical, actually. It's been lower for years and years and years, but it is now higher than ever before, which means minerals are at their most expensive the game has ever seen. That takes some time, but it will ripple through everything else because everything's built on minerals, except stuff like Keepstars, which is built on planetary stuff, which hasn't been hit by scarcity, which means the Keepstars stay the same in price, but all your dreads that it takes to destroy a Keepstar, those have gone up.
Yeah, dreads are a little bit more expensive right now. Like these guys, the people fighting this war, they don't have to pay that price too much. But I mean, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Snuffed Out and Siege Green just had a massive dread brawl rather, in Secede in Losec, and you're talking about 350 billion dreads that died. The actual price tag on that's probably closer to 400 or 500 bill, just because replacing them is going to be harder and harder because the people that sell them those dreads, they don't necessarily have a huge stockpile to work with. They don't have a Test Alliance level stockpile. They don't have an Imperium level stockpile to work from. So these smaller people or these smaller groups or medium-sized groups, they're getting hit real hard. And I don't think we've actually begun to even see the true effects of it, right, until probably for another 2 or 3 months.
Well, it will be interesting. One last thing about the Keepstar and the overall war effort, and that is I guess the messaging coming out of both camps. I want to kind of get that straight. What are they trying to project at this point? What are they saying is going to happen in the future? And I'm specifically thinking of Imperium's fireside chats, what they're saying there, and what Gobbins is saying, and what Villy is saying, what some of the leaders of PAPI are saying. Do you have a take on that?
So what I expect and kind of what I'm assuming will happen, right? So I think the Imperium are going to play to their strengths. They're going to say, "Hey, Esoteria is burning. We're doing great work out there. We're losing systems in Delve that we don't use anyways. So they haven't really done anything like this. They move next door to us. The next day they lose a Titan. So I'm not too worried about that. We have the biggest fortress the game has ever seen. Until something gets noticeably taken down or noticeably invaded, we're not worried, right? So the Imperium is going to try and focus on their strengths and then bait the PAPI forces to come in into 1DQ or into E3O and try and do a headshot maneuver. They're going to just really goad them into it while still doing that, hey, Test is ordering you guys around and they're not even bothering to show up, like type thing. They're going to try and reduce the number of incoming threats, right? So they're going to try and shake loose whatever they can. If they can get one block out of here, the numbers get a little bit more manageable for them and they can take head-on fights. The Imperium know this, right? They know that they are outgunned and outclassed pretty much top to bottom just by the sheer numbers. Yeah. So they're going to try and mitigate that somehow. I don't know if the test thing is going to work out too well for them, because the one thing that backfired propaganda wise hilariously for them, the whole test is next meme, which is like, oh, when this fails, test is going to be the next person we invade and they're going to all die. It is now transformed into test is next door. Which I think was just masterful, right? So that's part of the Imperium propaganda that very rarely backfires so spectacularly, but I think that happened.
Yeah.
And I'm really amused by it. If you're on the PAPI side, you've got to keep your head down, nose to the grindstone. You can't get overzealous. You can't say, hey, we're next door. Let's just finish it off right here, right now. 1DQ by Christmas, that would be an absolute disaster. So you got to keep taking infrastructure away, force the Imperium into that Helm's Deep that they want to be in so much, take away more of the map from them, make them feel isolated, make them feel back into a corner, and don't play into them waiting for opportunistic moments. Like that's the hard part, right? Because what the Imperium is doing is they're forcing PAPI to take every timer as seriously as possible, which means you can't just have like a movie night where you grind through a Sotillo or some faction Fortizars. You've actually got to be on the ball. So they're hoping that one of these FCs gets burned out, or just makes a mistake by being a little bit too lazy and not having a plan in place. They're using what Delve has, which is just an abundance of structures, and hoping that can give them an advantage, right?
Yeah.
It's not to the point where the Imperium are afraid right now because they have so many structures left. Like they know that all the structures that are not behind E3O and are not in 1DQ, they know those are gone, right? They've written those off probably weeks ago as soon as that FWST and YZ9 fights happened. Like they've just written those off. As soon as the YZ9 Keepstar went down, that's just a complete write-off for all those structures. But they're going to try and use those to bait out a fight where someone's unprepared. That's pretty much their only path forward.
And these guys, we're looking at live footage now of the gate between DTAC-W and T5Z. And this is where that Ragnarok just went down from test. You can see what the reaction force is like. I think the reaction force is a little overdone, but I think it's a show of power. It's a show of power. Like that's way more than enough to secure anybody else getting in trouble there. And the idea is there is, I mean, the point of all this that we've seen is there is no
do I see
safe
them
spot.
extracting? Is that what's starting to happen here? I'm seeing Sinos go.
Yeah, probably.
Not Sinos, but I'm seeing things starting to jump out. Looks like
they only have to go
extracting.
through one gate, so it's pretty good, at least in this scenario.
Yeah, moving this many ships has problems. If you move too many through a gate at the same time, there's a chance they bump, and then you get yourself into another situation where some are on one side, some are on the other. So it takes a lot of coordination to move this kind of hardware. So don't be the guy that makes it happen for you.
Yeah,
that's basically the point.
One of the more kind of peculiar dynamics with the graphical update that happened last week or the week before, where they made super carriers, their models bigger. Now they can bump easier, right? I don't know if that was an intended effect, because it does mean moving mass supers becomes a little bit more risky because if one bounces and it bounces too far, it gets out of rep range and dies.
I think that change was more for aesthetics more than anything. Yes, it's going to cause more bumpings, but super carriers were very close to carrier side, and they were like 10 times tougher and stronger. It doesn't make sense. They're closer to a Titan than they are a carrier. So them resizing them, actually, this is the first time I've seen them actually in game on this footage, and I think that they're aesthetically very pleasing. Being at that size, and it seems to match their role and what they provide to the fight. So
they actually do. They certainly feel way more, and I hate to say this word, but it's suited here. They feel more epic, right? They feel like a 30 billion-isk space vessel more than just a slightly bigger carrier, right? So, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, right? If you make an art decision, how's it going to impact the gameplay? Was it even considered? I don't know, but that is just a byproduct as these things do bounce.
Might
and
be
I'm sure
why
we're going to see it.
Might be why it took so long. They announced that these changes would happen a year or two ago when faxes came in and were huge, and they dwarfed the motherships or the super carriers. So it could have been a priorities, art priorities, because they did a lot of Triglavian stuff in between time. But
they didn't change the artwork on it. They just made it bigger. Like they just like
they did. They added detail.
Screen in Photoshop and make it a little bit bigger.
No, they added detail. They added.
Did they?
Added,
oh, okay.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's all a little more meticulous. Like there's more detail in the super carriers. But so they were enhanced a little bit. But they also now are about a third the size of a Titan, whereas before they might have been like 1/5 or 1/7.
They're like a tenth the size of a Titan. They were literally so before they were something like 2,000 to 3,000 meters in size. Now they're like 8 to 9. Where Titan they're almost as big, like they're way bigger than they were before. And I think that's fantastic for what they are. I think that's really neat. But the bumping thing, if you're coherent and understand what's going on when you're jumping a bunch of things into one location, bumping is going to happen. It just kind of happens. I don't think that they.
Well, in the numbers that Elise is
much.
talking about, it's a big change because now because we're talking hundreds, and so it becomes a big.
It gets a little silly. But
one thing that was interesting though is the MER came out for October, and this is the middle of the war, right? This is the monthly economic report. It comes out and shows that mining has definitely moved to high sec. Mining is only happening in Owasso, and that's it. And all the top empires are all just about equal in the amount of mining that's happening, which is really nice to see. It's very well distributed among all the empires. So I'm talking about Galente, Amar, etc.
That's because in high sec you can't control space. Like the most you can do is you see somebody mining in your territory and you can go suicide gank them. Like that's the worst thing that you can do to somebody that's mining, and that's not worth it to stop them from mining.
I heard, interestingly, that Imperium is not suicide ganking miners because there are so many Imperium alts out there mining, and they can't tell who is and who isn't. So they just said, just stop destroying. Not only stop destroying miners because they might be ours, but we kind of need them to put it on the market so we could buy it. So it's interesting. There's safety now for miners that wasn't there a few months ago.
I honestly think that this mining change does create the need for people to trade between regions, and it's going to be interesting seeing how the low sec groups react. Like, might be behind the curve here, but seeing low sec people actually start mining the Noxium, and the fact that there's so much Veldspar in high sec, it's actually worth mining in high sec now. You can sit there for quite a while.
Yeah. So, Noxium being the one mineral, I think there's like 8, and it's there's the one mineral that is really the bottleneck for building, and that's going to be found mostly in low sec, which is
it's abundant, but it's in low sec.
Yeah.
So you can get rich, but you're risking your fleet to do so. And I honestly think that reward will encourage people to figure out how to do it. And I think if you do it quietly in the corner, you could probably get away pretty well with it. Honestly, there's a lot of Noxium out there, and it's not being mined because people are afraid to do it.
Wasn't that cool that at least that the tighter that Noxium bottleneck is, the more incentive there is to go and get it, the more activity goes up in low sec. Did they just save low sec with a tight bottleneck on one mineral?
So here's the thing: what the low sec people who live in low sec and love the area, they're a little bit. They're of two minds, right? Because what they don't want to see is they don't want to see low sec to become null sec or to become null sec light, right? What happens if Snuff, who just dropped a Keepstar in Rakapas, what if they just start throwing Rorquals around through low sec? And if you go and attack them, then their huge fleet is going to drop on you. Then low sec, it becomes maybe more active in numbers and the metrics, but it becomes way less enjoyable to be in. Because what happens after that is, hey, I'm a miner. I see all this money being made in getting Noxium. I'm going to join Snuff, or I'm going to join the group aligned to Snuff. So instead of being like in a small independent group or a group of 5 or 10 people, I'm going to join up with these bigger guys. And eventually Snuff turns into Imperium Light in low sec, or the biggest group that does the same thing. So it's the same story told over in a different space. But the good news is what I'm seeing a lot
is... We're the ally with them, but yeah.
What I'm seeing a lot is people are so far staying small, and especially in Domain. Domain is a massive region. It's got tons of little low-sec islands and low-sec pockets where you can mine and make your nut. But there's a lot of mining going on in Domain. The problem is, because the Triglavians removed Niarja, there is no way for them to move that stuff from Domain and really do anything with it. So Domain as a region, even though it has all these resources, is like slowly falling. If you look at where it was in the MER a year ago, it was at the top. Now it's at the bottom in terms of exports and imports. Sync is the big region. Sync Lazone is the big winner here. It drops from the bottom and went to the top, right? So more people are importing stuff into Sync.
The two. And also a fun fact, I've been building jump bridges to the fortified hubs. Sing Liaison is the bridge between Jita and Amar. So their Dixie's kind of the midpoint. I know it's only like 9 jumps and Amar's like 40, but jump freighting wise, it's the midpoint. between the two, and Deacon is a really close system to Dodixie, and it's also the bridge between Dodixie, or between jumping from Jita and getting to Amar. So if you're doing a jump freighter lane, Dodixie is smack in the middle.
Yeah, so Sync is the big winner here. A lot of people have been moving. A lot of, especially smaller groups of miners, have been moving their stuff away from Domain and moving it into Sync, because the areas, it's still big. There's still a lot of stuff there for them to mine, especially in the little low sec pockets. It's not too inundated with piracy.
Udama, you have to go through Udama if you're going through high sec. That's why I made the jump freighter line. And then also you have to go through Heck. Heck is another line. Yeah, HEK. So you go from Jita, and if you're going to Amar, you can go around tour, swing by Dodixie, and then you're gonna go to Heck, and then you'll end up near Amar.
They call that the Silk Road now, because it winds all the way through the lands to get to that far off Amarian land.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that they did it that way. There's kind of like two sides now, and you can kind of go back and forth between them, and they're known as the biggest trade hubs, and they are for good reason. There's the Amar is the closest to all the south, and Jita is the closest to all the north now. So it makes sense that there's two trade hubs, and I think it's honestly a good design choice. It'll force a little bit of deviance, because they're not identical, of course.
Sure, they would say the players decided that with the amount of systems they helped Triglavians take over and all that sort of thing. But what it has done has changed the monthly economic report statistics for Amar. So do you think Amar is coming or going, at least? Do you think, we thought that it would become bigger than Jita because it has such a customer base in the south that can't get to Jita anymore?
I mean, I'm not the best when it comes to this type of thing, but I certainly think Domain is going away. I see Dodixie is becoming the next big winner here. Maybe not in the next couple of weeks or even months, but maybe this time next year, Dodixie is the second biggest trade hub, and Domain or Amar is tied with like Heck or Renz.
So I really see Amar standing where they are. I know you say that Dodixie is going to raise, but the fact that Amar services the south very well is important to it being a big thing, and I think that they'll both be big trade hubs at the end.
Well, Amar was eclipsed.
They're the second largest trade hub. Yeah,
right.
So but it was still like 1/10 of Jita.
But Amar in the south was eclipsed by Delve, which was further south. But Delve is no longer functioning. So maybe over time, that client base that had good low prices in Delve, ends up using Amar. It's a crazy thought, because who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? But
yeah, so there's even other things that are happening in resource redistribution that we haven't even touched on yet, right? So this is still the early stages. I know it was just leaked on CC earlier today or earlier this week that Mission LP is next on the chopping block, right? So we have ESS and the dynamic distribution system for ratting. We already saw the mineral redistribution, and it looks like mining is next. So I say the carrots have to be coming somewhere, but
yep. You mentioned the LP, and that's one that a lot of people are looking at me like, hey, what do you think about this? And I honestly think that CCP right now, they should nerf it. I honestly think that they should. The LP makes a little bit too much ISK a little too easily, especially when you do level 5s and burners out in nullsec. It's a little bit too valuable. But at the same time, I know I'm a high sec carer, and I know I'm extremely biased. This is probably coming from biased words. It's in a good place for high sec right now. You still have to do things and work for your ISK. And I think that right now on CC, they're testing it to see what can be done, how it can be done, and they're just turning knobs and seeing what the hell happens when you turn X knob, Y happens. I got a screenshot in my Discord yesterday of a level 5 mission being worth 9,000 LP, which is literally 1/10 of the value as it was before. They're obviously not going to do a 1/10 nerf. I've heard another rumor that they changed the price of things from LP, which is on the test server. I think they're honestly just tweaking dials to see what happens, and they're figuring it out. And I'm sure we're going to hear something soon about what's going to happen. And I think that even if it's nerfed, it's still going to be good content to play. And I don't think that they're going to nerf it by like 50%. I'd see reasonably like 20 to 30% nerf would make sense, but they're just turning dials on CC right now.
Yeah, from what the rumor will is, or people have been speculating, about 10% probably drop off. So it's not a huge thing, but it's definitely gonna feel like everything's getting more expensive. I bought a Dominix to go ESS diving the other day, and I was like, the Dominix in this fit, it's almost 400
like
mil already.
Mil, yeah.
Like with my fit and everything, I was like, I could have bought like a year ago. I was buying Balgorns for less than this. What is this? What's going on here? So
yeah, some mineral prices are going up.
I thought for sure I was getting scammed somewhere. Gee, I was like, which one of these modules is too high? Something's got to be wrong.
Well, it's starting to hit those secondary and tertiary supplier lines, right? Minerals go up, then the first level of ships goes up, and then the second level will go up too. It's funny, when minerals go up, everybody buys the minerals, but nobody buys the equipment. So that's a good thing. And speaking of this LP going up, right? Because the scarcity is going up as well, which means the price is going to go up. What kinds of stuff do LP play into so that somebody can, what's the smart buys right now for people to avoid the LP?
I won't
price hikes?
Speculate on what's a smart buy for LP right now, because there are so many different reasons why different things would go up in different ways. All that I know is that if they do nerf LP, and that's an if, in a significant way, we'll see faction gear get more expensive. Right, with that hint going up, Gila's went from 250 mil to 400 million almost instantaneously.
Wow. Just on the rumor?
Just on the rumor, yeah. Because all Gilas come from nullsec burners. Like, that's where they come from, or 90% of them come from that. You probably get some they drop in random crap, but most of them come from nullsec burners. It's an easy dump. And if those people that are running nullsec burners decide, oh, well, this isn't worth it, or I'm not making LP anymore, the price of Gilas will go up. And so do all of the other pirate ships. They come from LP, from the faction LP store, and that's the source of them. They come from those mission runners, and they get built that way. So we'll see their prices go up. We'll see all the faction gear go up, all the SOE stuff, all the random stuff will just go up. If it gets nerfed, that's all that's going to happen. I don't think that it's going to be like you don't make money anymore from doing missions. I think the value of it will go up. But yeah, it's literally everything comes from LP. And if they nerf pirate LP specifically, which I think is what's going to happen, what will happen is pirate gear will get more expensive. I think pirate battleships and pirate cruisers and pirate frigates. That's just... this is all speculation. It's very clear. This is a change that happened on CC with no devlog or announcement. They're just playing with dials on CC or on the test server right now.
Yeah. It's speculation, but it's actually very informed speculation as opposed to just somebody saying something. Go ahead, Elise.
I was going to say a few friends of mine, they live in Venal, in that K through J area, and the HPA and NJ4. Like, there's a lot of Garistas missioners out there, and they told me a few weeks ago that one of the input broadcasting guys who was running burners for Garistas, that they speculated might have also been a bot as well. He's been banned, so they haven't seen him in his set of systems going through there. So that could be another reason for the price hike of the Gila and stuff like that. But one of the things that's always been frustrating to CCP is they make these pirate battle cruisers, and they try and differentiate them from the T1 variety. Try and make them a little bit better, try and make them cool, but they have to play with it. They have to be like very delicate, because if they make the Gila too good, for instance, which I think they probably did, everyone can agree it's an incredibly yoked out ship. Then if it's cheap,
it's a Gila. It's good at like two things.
Yeah, but
it's really good at two things.
It's supremely good at them, to the point where it's like, especially when you look at the Abyss stuff, like they just dominate, right?
But that's what they're good at. Every ship has its thing that it's good at, and they excel in the field, and they just kind of fit into Abyss like a glove. They kind of work for other PvE, but they don't really do PvE well, if that makes sense.
I can see, but either way, back to what I was going for, is like, it's hard to balance them when they're everywhere and they're very cheap. Like, how much better than a Vex or Navy issue can it be, and stuff like that. So it's neat that now that they're a little bit more expensive, or potentially becoming more expensive, that maybe the thing that separates them from their Tech 1 or Navy counterparts might be a little bit more exaggerated. So that could be a cool byproduct that happens, which is it's always nice to see.
Yeah. So interestingly, this brings back the point that Fozzie made, but years ago, that it's not a good idea to balance on price. So you don't want to make something really good just really expensive, because some people will be easily able to get it and dominate, and other people that can't afford it will be left out. So it was never a good idea. But has that changed? Because scarcity seems to be doing some balancing, right?
I think it's doing it by accident, or
Yeah.
maybe not by accident, but as maybe less than intended consequence, right? So it's whenever you hear CCP talk about it, it's something that's always in the back of their head a little bit that they're aware of, but it's never like the main focus for their design decision, at least not publicly. But I'm sure they're really happy about where things are now, because the things they've buffed have been getting better and better and better and more expensive as a result of this scarcity.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of segues next into the next patch that's coming. And Hateless probably
Explosive.
has a little bit more insight on this, but essentially,
We're talking about explosive velocity. Let's introduce it. Wait, before we go there, I just have one more question for you, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was, I almost forgot. Oh, the MER, monthly economic report. We just have to put this in there. That's the Keepstars that were taken in October in Delve, right? There was 5 Keepstars that went down. 4 of them were destroyed, but in the process, trillions of ISK were actually destroyed. That did register on the MER. You could see it down there. Do you have any thoughts on the destruction in Delve numbers?
I think the PAPI side are looking at that with a huge grin on their face. They know exactly, like, that was the purpose, or at least they have the benefit of saying now after the fact that was the purpose of all the Keepstars. Whether or not that's actually true, Philly did say that that was part of the reason for dropping so many, is they want to bleed the Imperium out of ISK and some of their resources and stockpiles. But they can look at that with a huge grin on their face, say, hey, over the course of just a few weeks, we surpassed the rest of the game combined in terms of destruction and what we inflicted. And you know what, the PAPI side, they lost very little in terms of this, right? So this is almost all an Imperium spike. Huge, never before seen really the level of like destruction there. But here's the thing: the Imperium can just sit back and say, "Hey, we'll do it again. Double dog dares, we'll do it a third time. Like, we don't care. We have a war chest that is built for this. We have the ability to do this and sustain it. No other mega alliance or coalition in the game could have survived that level of destruction and still have that level of destruction in their arsenal plus some."
Yeah, that's the smart money. That would be the smart rhetoric, that confidence of sitting back and say, it's no problem, we'll do it again. But that's not really what we heard from the Imperium, because in the last fireside, I think you heard Matani saying, like, that really hurt. And what I've heard is that he wasn't around for those Keepstars, like he was on vacation or something. I'm not sure if that's true. And so the decision making to actually spend that amount of money wasn't necessarily his. This is what I'm hearing. So when he did come back and they did attack the 5th Keepstar, he's like, we're not doing that again. And that's what I've heard. But anyway, what do you think?
I mean, that would make a lot of sense too, because that's one of those moments again where both sides, their leadership, they were diametrically opposed in their views, and they both thought they were right. The PAPI side were like, I can't believe they're throwing so much at this Keepstar. We'll just drop another one. And the Imperium side was just, at the time, they're just like, hey, we'll just keep doing this. Ravens ain't no thing. We'll just keep throwing stuff at it. And they got it down. Like, they got the Butcher's Bill down from the first one to the last one to a very low price. And then when the bubble wrapped Keepstar and YZ9 happened, they just didn't show up, right? At the time, the rhetoric was, oh, the bubbles caused lag. That was, I don't want to say it was bullshit, but it was, because the entire PAPI side bridged in after the bubbles went up anyways. So they probably just did a cost analysis of it, and they were like, you know what? The strategy that we wanted to do for this one won't work because of the bubbles. If we want to get this thing down, we're going to lose probably 300 dreads. It's just not worth it. screw it. And they didn't want to raise that tab any higher. It's probably another reason why you didn't see them throwing bodies at the YZ9 one, especially because it doesn't really matter too much to them, right? There's already one in there. You've already opened that box. You're not sealing it again.
You mean the T5Z one?
Sorry,
the new one, yeah, the new Keepstar. They didn't contest it at all on either timer, but because they didn't, they had the dreads to take out a Titan. So I see what the
exactly right, and that killing that Titan probably it was more valuable to the Imperium, anyways, because you did it right under the PAPI noses too. So it's just like a super double sweet moment for them. Like, hey, we didn't waste these killing your Keepstar. We let you put it in, and we killed your rag on the way to enjoy living next door to us, guys. Like that's just a perfect Imperium like locker room material for the rest of the week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you look for in these fights is morale boosts and victories where you can get them. And that's why you see such tortured narratives when all facts are against you. You're starting to see all this really kind of mind-bending rhetoric come out. And not just on Imperium side, but mostly, right? I won't say it's a tie score when it comes to rhetoric, because Billy may say some things that are very partisan, but the facts are kind of on his side. And that's one thing that can't be denied. The floodplains are gone. Everything's, breached in Delve, and now you're in the middle of Delve. You were right. They just contested like 4 or 5 or more iHubs again. That iHub is a destruction of your infrastructure. It strands your structures that are in your region. So those are marked for destruction. And those are facts. Can't deny them, and it's hard to narrate around them and stuff. So, that's why you're seeing such kind of like weird stuff. And here's the funny thing: like Fountain was resistant at the very beginning of the war, and then it broke down through basically. I think another rumor I've heard, and I'm not sure this. Maybe it's not fit for publication, but for whatever reason, Initiative left Fountain. So did Bastion. And it was taken and razed. Basically, everything was destroyed there for iHubs, and a lot of structures were destroyed. But Initiative came right back, and within 3 or 4 days, took most of it back, not all of it. And then over time, they solidified it. And now their ADMs, I think, are at like 3 or 4. They're very mature ADMs, so the place is very much taken back. But now they're in striking range to go and wipe it out again.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the interesting strategies that is going to play out here, right? So, and this is probably going to benefit the PAPI side as well, because they can distract everyone of their members. I don't want to say like that they need to be manipulated or anything, but they can say, "Hey, I know 1DQ is right here. Don't worry too much about it. We're going back for Fountain Part 2, the Boogaloo, because they are now completely cut off." And that's the interesting part right now. Everyone that's in Fountain that moved in there, they are just kind of stuck there, frankly, because the PAPI is now between the Imperium and the rest of Fountain. So those guys that are in Fountain, they're going to have to scoot out through Iridia or secure their stuff into the NPC areas in there, which is like the Fountain core. Because if stuff comes through there, if like Horde runs rampant through there, and the rest of PAPI do as well, there's no backup coming, right? There's no way they can save that Y-2 area. Is completely wide open.
Yeah. Oh, and there was the narrative there by Sikander. Says the Initiative is deployed to Esoteria because Test is now evacuating, or the other way around, because Initiative went, Test is evacuating. Whatever. Like, that's just narration of timing, but we know there's an opportunity to distract. That's why Initiative's in there. We know that the war really is in Delve, as we can see. So Esoteria falling apart is important, but not critical to this war. And thirdly, Initiative being in a Fountain, I'm not sure how they would be able to resist a full PAPI force coming through again. Maybe if just Horde did it on their own, there would be some competitiveness, but literally they're going to get rolled in Fountain again. I don't see how that's not going to happen, but you never know, because people are going in different directions, and maybe some things happen. Maybe the war breaks open into a lot of skirmishes and stuff, but so far it's been a pretty solid plan. So
Yeah, I feel like we can spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to jump back
Yeah,
in a
yeah. I
little
mean,
bit,
let's
right? So we've got
okay.
the holidays coming up, which is
Right.
a time where people might not be able to play um, as actively as they otherwise could, especially as the Eve player base is aging a little bit, right? A lot of young families, in terms of especially in some FCs, right? So you got young like 30-year-olds, right, as the average median age.
Yeah.
So
32. It's
it's
aging.
not like these kids are on like winter break saying, "Yo, let me boot up the Eve Online and see what happens." Now they don't have middle school to go to, right? So they've got to temper the action a little bit here. So I wouldn't be surprised if from now until the year end, you see the fighting going down in Esoteria and Fountain in these little like I don't want to call them proxy wars because they're like right there and in your face, but these little areas that are off the heat map of Delve. So that's why I expect a lot of the action to be until the new year. Then they can jump right back into it, right? Because no one wants to jump into this huge fight in Delve while there's like people like half your members can't log in. That would be a disaster for both sides. Um,
So we might
so
see a
yeah.
lull. Might see a lull in activity.
Might see a little
Interesting.
bit of lull. That's why I was always interested in how the Horde Ping framed it, how Gobbins framed it to his members, like, "Hey guys, Fountain's back on the menu." Instead of we're right next door to 1DQ, let's take it all down tomorrow. It's, "Hey guys, we've positioned ourselves to the point where we can take Fountain and the Imperium can't do anything about it. Let's
Very interesting.
go." So I think that's going to be the focus. And
Oh, that's such an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that. Let's do some low intensity work instead of raising the stakes super high when everybody's going to go inactive. That's an incredibly insightful point. Okay, enough about the war. Let's move on to the new expansion coming up in December. Speaking of holidays, and what do you guys think of Explosive Velocity? First, what's in it, and then what do you guys think of it?
So the first change is that they're making torpedoes apply better, which is going to make them more viable in a lot of situations. Right now, the only time that you use torpedoes is on, I believe it's the Navy Raven that has the explosion radius bonus, and then you use torpedoes on stealth bombers and occasionally golems. And then, of course, if you're looking for memes, you put them on the Phoenix. But overall, torpedoes have been a really bad applying weapon system. They're not used. Generally, it's better to just use cruise missiles on most missile ships rather than torpedoes. So I'm excited to see them actually apply better, and I'm excited to see what kind of ships or usefulness we can find from them. But their application is atrocious. If you have all fives to your missile skills and you shoot a battleship with a battleship weapon, and both of them are sitting stationary, you do not apply full damage. It is silly how bad the application in torpedoes is, and there are a few ships that can actually make that better to a degree where you actually would get full damage on a hit. And I'm just excited to see that. Seeing torpedoes used more often would be very exciting. No, that's super brief, but you have anything else to say?
I just say I like the TL. You did a really good job summing it up. The TLDR is that the Hall Phoenix is going to be more pervasive. Like when I read that patch note, the only thing I can think of is Hall Phoenix. Like that's what I see in my eyes, and it's a hilarious little thing to fly around. It
Yeah,
applies
they're
a lot more damage now. And yeah, so the big thing is damage application is getting buffed. I know Stitch Caneland, very accomplished PvPer, and he likes to fly things that use torpedoes. He was a bit bummed at this patch because it's buffing his favorite weapon type, but it's buffing it in a way that he doesn't think it. Okay, let me rephrase this so I don't butcher his thoughts. He would have preferred to see a range bonus instead of an application bonus because the application is already so bad that he works that into the equation and works that into his fits. But he would rather see the damage go a little bit further, rather the missiles go a little bit further. So people are a bit mixed, but I do think this is just an overall buff to Torps, right? And we've been seeing CCB have been doing this really well, and I don't know if we've given them enough credit for it, but they've been, instead of buffing a ship class or a ship type in one big patch, they're putting these small ones out over the course of almost like 6-8 months that'll slowly buff these ships up, right? So 2 years ago, you say, oh, the Torp Foon is trash, and it even looks like a trash can. What has CCP done? They've buffed damage type. They've reduced resist for everything else. They've buffed battleships a little bit. They're buffing application.
So I am just going to mention torpedoes
buffs.
were already buffed in the last weapons change when they buffed all the close range ammo. Guess what got a buff? The rage ammo, but guess what has no application? Rage ammo.
Exactly. So you're seeing this series of buff after buff after buff for these types of ships. So it's hard for these theory crafters to come up with like a new meta defining doctrine or even like small gang stuff. So it's very cool to see, because after like just there's like a certain threshold where a ship has gotten so many buffs that you're like, hey, I kind of forgot that this ship is good. So let me go ahead and fly this now. So it is cool to see.
So on the range discussion, so torpedoes don't have terrible range. I know that's going to sound absurd, but what you do to compensate for their application is you put on a bunch of tracking computer or ballistics control. I can't remember exactly what they're called. They're the computers that make missiles apply better or have better range. You can script them both ways. So Javelin torps with a couple range scripts actually reach out to a reasonable distance for what the weapon system is. It compensates for that weakness to a degree that I feel is fair. I feel like buffing their range is not a good option on that note. So, and then also a lot of ships that use them have some kind of range bonus. Interested to see what this does to the Barcasts with torpedoes, because that ship is awesome.
Yeah, the Barghest does own. It's also one of those ships that's like, oh, let me go buy a Barghest. When I was like out in June, I was like, wait, they're almost $1 billion ISK now? What's going on? Like the prices of everything has just kept going up.
So they're $1 billion ISK because they can do level 5s. That's why.
They can, they're really good at level 5. I mean, they're insanely good at level 4s. I think I watched one of your videos of just blitzing level 4s in a Barghest. They are so good. And also, they're one of the only ships in the game that gets a bonus to the Rapid Heavies, which are an insanely good ship as well. You're talking about the new ESS area where you don't have to worry about frigates so much. So you can, like, there's a new theater of PvP where you don't have to worry about the tiny ships. So Rapid Heavies are even better at everything they do.
I feel like Ravens with torpedoes or other things with torpedoes might be a lot of fun in the ESS after this change, because the application will be really good against cruisers and whatnot. But also, I do want to note, before we get distracted from this, that with them buffing torpedoes, if they just did that without changing anything else, bombers would become stupid scary, because they're doing about 1,000 DPS right now after the most recent rage buff. They are also nerfing bombers, and none of these numbers have been put in concrete yet. So they've said that they're buffing it, but we don't know if it's by 5%, by 20%, by 2%. We don't know how big of a change it actually is, so we can't actually start developing and figuring things out because we don't know the exact numbers yet. But any buff I will gladly take for torpedoes, because they need it.
Yeah, that is important to point out, because I think when I had stars in my eyes looking at the Phoenix, the Haw Phoenix, everyone else, every sensible person was like, guys, but bombers, right? So it's good to see that they're going to get taken down a little bit, because they're already very good at what they do in terms of killing big ships, in terms of bombing. I think the bombers are in a good spot. So hopefully they don't get too strong or too weak, but it does look like, Atlas, you're right, that they're going to try and keep an even keel on those.
All right. So we're running out of time, because Elise has a second duty he has to do, and that is the Alliance tournament. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to hit both you guys who are very visible in the community of EVE Online players as streamers and as commentators and such. Partnership program announced by CCP. What do you guys think of that?
I'm actually really excited for it. It'll give content creators a way to give back to their communities in an easier way. I know that I've been playing EVE Online for free, and I spend most of the ISK that I make on Plex. Actually, that recently changed, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But it's hard for people to continue playing the game and pay for the game, and then you give all the support to the game, and we haven't really gotten anything back as a kickback from CCP in a long while. We used to be able to stream to the CCP channel, it felt really weird. You'd support them and you wouldn't really get a lot of support back. You kind of did, and I feel weird saying this being on another person's channel, but for the most part, it helps the creator that recruits the person. So Matterall, for example, would benefit greatly from me coming into the channel, but I may not receive as much benefit because I'm just coming onto his channel. So he receives benefit from it. But it helps when those content creation ways benefit both sides really well. And I feel like the benefits that they're offering with the rule set that they have is actually really fantastic. Basically, if you read the terms of service for it, you just need to basically stream EVE Online, and they're not super strict about it. They say that you can't get angry and bash EVE Online, which is kind of fair. I mean, they don't want you down talking their game, but they do allow lenience for if you're unhappy about something, speak up, say it. That's fine. And then also, the other thing that's been controversial on this is that if you are part of the partnership program, you're not supposed to attack other streamers. And the way that is worded and the way it looks like to me, which is the big talking point on this, is that if you naturally come across, so say you're running a ganking stream.
Do they mean in the game, or do they mean you can't talk trash about other streamers?
So they don't want the partners to ruin each other's streams, is basically what it is. So say you are a content creator that does ganking and you gank somebody that's also a partner. If that gank was a fluid thing that would have happened without the streams existing, and so you didn't go in their stream and hunt for them, but if you guys just happen across each other, it'd be okay, is my understanding on that. But that's the biggest question that I've been getting. But again, I'm not CCP. I don't know exactly how the rules are. And as far as I know, nobody's actually gotten the application back yet. I put mine in right away because I honestly like the rule set for it. It's fair and it's reasonable, and it's what you can expect out of somebody that's advertising your game. And what the content creators get back is they get some skins to give away. They get some plex that they get 500 plex a month that they get, and one of their accounts gets paid for. So they actually get stuff to give away to their viewers. And then on top of that, they're saying that that they're going to advertise as streams, which is a huge kickback to content creators. So Matterall, for you, when you go live on TAS, a notification or something might go on the onto the launcher, so people would see the channel and know that, oh, there's a news channel for EVE Online. This is really cool. I think that there's a lot of potential for CCP to advertise their content creators, and that is absolutely fantastic and a good way to help the content creators, which then in turn helps them. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship that I see working very well.
Elise, your take?
Yeah, I mean, I really like it as well. It's something that EVE has needed, right? Because EVE is such a niche game. There have been so many talented people enter EVE Online, start creating content for it, and then they can't really, the base isn't there for them to keep growing, so they go on and move to something else. And obviously I'm happy where they go on and be successful. And I know that's the nature of content creation and streaming, but it sucks that we've had so many huge names that are leaving, and it's people like Hateless I want to keep and grab onto and make sure he doesn't ever leave. So this is a nice little incentive to keep those incredibly talented people making that EVE Online content, because there is no manual for EVE Online, right? If, at least for me, if there's anything that I ever have a question with, I hop on the YouTube, I look on blogs and podcasts and stuff to see what the answer is. Everything seems relatively boilerplate to me, which is good, right? In a game of this size, you would expect something like that. I'm glad we're seeing it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on the low end, a little bit more on the high end. I wish it was tiered, right? So we could get the Bjornbys of the world to have something a little bit more, and then people just starting out the resources they might need, right? And by resources I just mean DMCA free audio for their streams, some ideas on art assets they can use for their streams, just a little step up program type thing. But maybe that's coming.
So CCP has released this in the past. Every single asset is free to download for use in content creation. Just period. You can download every single visual asset in the game.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, that's good. One of the things I do love about this partner program the most, right? The reliance, the reliance on podcasts and blogs, because or rather not the reliance on, but the support of podcasts and blogs, which you don't necessarily see in other games in their partnership program deals. I love that because EVE Online just has this rich history of having this incredible blogosphere and just podcasts and stuff like that. So it's a nice to see them recognize that. And also the access to the devs part is huge. What separates EVE Online for me and always has been is the fact that the people that make the game, the people that are behind the scenes, are passionate about the project that they're working on, and they'll come and talk to the players about it. They'll happily, like, you can grab a CCPer and pull them onto your show and just talk to them about it. And they're like, okay, yeah, I do this for work every day, but I'm happy to spend my weekend talking to you about it too. And that excitement is very real. But obviously they don't know everyone, so they can't reach out to every single person. So for a long time, it's been a matter of like, who do you know? If you're a podcaster or a blogger, like, can you reach out? Do you have the ability to reach out to like a CCP Alpha type person to comment on your stream, or to a CCP Fozzie or to a CCP Rise and get a quick comment about this? Now they're going to be in all one central spot where you can reach out to them. You don't have to have like a pre-existing network with them, anything like that. Everyone's on a level playing field, and everyone can grab these devs. And really, that's what makes EVE special to me, right? Who cares about the mechanics of the game? Yeah, it's pretty, it's fun, the community is amazing. But the fact that the players are able, or rather the community is able to interact with the devs, that just takes it to a new level. So it's nice that we're going to be seeing more of that. And that's just a thing that like stuck out on the screen to me.
Chat is mentioning something that is true. Noisy Games looking at the qualifications. Now I don't qualify. The qualifications are about half of what Twitch partnership is, so it's kind of steep for new content creators to get in, but I think they wanted to do that so that people are somewhat vetted and have been around it for a while.
Well, he's a writer, not a streamer, but yeah.
Yeah, well, but still, it's they're rather on the steep side, at least on Twitch. Mm-hmm. They want an average concurrent viewership of 40 people going 3 months back. I don't know many people, or there's probably a lot more than I think, that are in the window between Twitch partnership and EVE partnership requirements. So there's not many people in that small window that you would see specifically going for this. And I know a few viewers of mine are like, oh, well, I may as well start streaming now. Getting to that partnership, or just doing that just to get the benefits of partner or EVE Online partner, there needs to be something else driving aside from that. You can't do it just for that. That's not enough to incentivize you or motivate you. I'm not trying to discourage people from trying, and I think it's great to get more people streaming, even more people excited about EVE, but it is a little on the steep side as a starting streamer. You're not going to get it instantaneously, and I do encourage you guys to go for it and chase after it if it's what you really want. But streaming and content creation as a whole is a very difficult world to work in.
Yeah, so I will say, to Noisy's point, and this is something that I was talking about before, I would have loved to see a step-up program, like an area in the middle there, or an area like between partnership program where you don't necessarily get you don't get the skins, or you don't get the 500 plex, but you get certain other access and you get certain other things, right? Because the fact that Noisy's blog is cited by CCP themselves, like the guy who does the entire EVE ecosystem talks about Noisy's blog in his comments to the community. The fact that he doesn't qualify is completely ridiculous, right? Like, I know he's an outlier. I'm sure when he applies, they're gonna be like, oh shit, he doesn't meet the qualifications, let's boosh him in anyway. But there are a lot of people that fall into that category where hopefully in the next few months here, we're going to see like an iteration on this program where, hey, the mega people get like 1,000 plex, right? And, you know, these other people, they get the people starting out, like we'll showcase their blogs. Like we'll put them on a central page for everyone to find because they meet the quality that we want, just the eyes aren't there yet. So let's do what we can to put the eyes on it, which is what the partnership program is all about.
That's a really good point, that they have the quality, they just don't have the eyes yet. Is a very good point. Listen, we're going to lose Elise really quickly. He's got to run and do the Alliance Open, the Alliance Tournament. But real quick, can you size it up for us? Because we're going to raid that next. What's going on in the Alliance tournament there?
So right now we're in the finals. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching. You can always go to the EVNT YouTube to watch any single match. But the meta has been back and forth. There's been a ton of upsets. Some of the names that you might have expected to be in the finals are not there. Some new names are there, and a very surprising team has made it very, very far. Also, so far, my favorite match of this whole tournament, it has been a match with Brave Newbies. Or rather the Brave Collective. Brave had a single Griffin pilot, perfect for Brave, right? That turned the tide of a match. He jammed out an Etana, which is like a 250 billion-esque super Tech 2 logistics cruiser. And he just nullified it completely with a Griffin. And if that isn't like the most iconic Brave story ever, where guy in Griffin thwarts a huge enemy, I don't know what is. So that was my favorite match. It was so perfect. You couldn't have scripted it any better.
There's a touch of irony that you're the one saying that too, right?
Yeah, because I've really been the one that's been jammed by them, right? So it was really, really cool to see. Brave had a really fantastic showing. They went very far as well. Not in the finals though, so I don't want to spoil it too much for you.
And do you have the name on hand on who that Griffin pilot was?
It's the person in charge of the Brave Dojo too, the group that hands out the skill books. Jake's something.
Let us know, chat, if you know.
But yeah, it was absolutely wonderful to see, and it was just so perfect, so iconic.
Yeah. By the way, what insight you have, not to spoil it for people that want to go back and watch it now. Thank you. That is like really thoughtful. All right, cool. So you're off to do some commentating, and we're in the final round. So this weekend, where you're going right now, basically is the end, right?
Yeah, it's the last match. Is going to be a best of 5. So we'll see who comes out victorious here, and what crazy hijinks happen.
Great. Awesome. Elise, thanks again. As always, if you have to drop, go ahead and drop. We picked up Ron USMC, who actually rated us earlier and quadrupled our numbers. Thanks, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, guys.
Hey, I wanted to go to, we're going to move over to ESS now and talk about what the first week and a half has been like. This came out, I believe, 2 weeks ago, Tuesday. Hateless, what has been your experience with it? Have you kept playing with it?
I have a little bit. I played with it a little bit last week, and I found that I got a couple fights. Frat's been really wanting to hunt you and not let you leave. So we had some fun. The meta for it is definitely developing, and the response fleets are getting more efficient and better at defending, which is really good. At least that's what I'm seeing. And I actually had a whole adventure last week with my fleet that ended up not seeing content from the ESS, but because we went out on the ESS, we actually killed a golem, which was a lot of fun. But as a content generation flashpoint, it's pretty great. I'm not sure how it's going to continue to develop as this war ends. I'm sure ratters will start ratting more. A lot of the active players that rat are in the middle of war right now. So I don't think that we're seeing it at its, at its best because of the large war happening, as a lot of people are deployed on war. I did go out to I've been taking yeet filaments out to it, and I'm getting a lot of, oh, well, if I was at home, I would defend, but nobody's home because they're all at war. But I do see a lot of potential for it to continue being good. I know that BRB has been having a lot of fun with it, and a lot of other streamers have been really enjoying it and having fun. And it has gotten me out of my Care Bear little bubble, and I've been actually going out and PvPing and having fun, which is absolutely fantastic.
Proof positive right there.
Yeah.
So what it was intended to do is mix people up. From what I've heard, Fraternity, at least Naros posted in Talking in Stations, their income has dropped by 50% when it comes to ratting already.
Yeah, so they're very good at defending their space, though.
Even though they're defending really well, they're still losing half of their income. And I can't imagine what that means for people that aren't as fierce as Fraternity in defending their ratting.
I did end up in northern space. I'm not sure who, but they were old court mates of mine, and their response fleet was almost instantaneous, and they had a really high index, and they were ratting.
Oh, okay.
So some people are making more because
that
of
a smaller
the
group?
index bonus. Yeah, that was a smaller group.
Oh, that's nice
But
to see. If it cuts
some
that way,
people
it'll
are
be
making
interesting.
more than they were before, and there's definitely a way to defend your space, get that bank big, attract people, get more kills, and multiply your ratting ticks, because I mean you get more for being effective at defending and ratting, which is really cool. I do see ideas, or I do see it being a potential for flashpoints. Again, CCP can still dial the knobs on the exact rate that the index goes up and down to incentivize more people to rat. Those numbers aren't hard and fast. We don't know if you kill this cruiser, this happens, and they can still adjust those dials and make it work the way they want it to, even if the player base isn't behaving exactly how they want it to incentivize the player base to behave in the way that is beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, we talked to Murray Rothbardo earlier in the week during the daily news show, and he was saying that he'd kind of calculated about 500 million if you rat under 500 million. I hope that's right. Per system, then it doesn't really drop your percentage that you get to keep from that. But it takes apparently days and days and days for it to regenerate back. And that means you would have to cycle through different systems for like 10, 15 days, staying at just over, under 500 million like per day, which is pretty unusual, but there's a way to kind of mitigate your losses.
That's fairly low to try and stand under that number as like a ratting number, saying I spent 8 hours in the game and I only made 500 million. That's going to be a system like that.
Or you could do 2 hours a day or something,
Yeah, but I'm going to say there's 5 people living there, and they need to make their share.
So that's a pretty low. In other words, the dynamic bounty system is generally going to lower people's income just because of the strain on the system.
Well, what if the people spread out? Makes the footprint bigger, makes you spread out a little bit to earn more ISK as a group, and then
but spreading out makes your
it riskier.
Yeah, it makes your riskier for you, but also your ESS less defendable, which is interesting too, right?
Yeah,
I like how these two things work together. The more people spread out, the less people there are to consolidate to fight a fight over an ESS. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, you got to balance it to your personal risk and reward, and there's definitely potential to make it better. And this being new, and people that generally are dedicated Care Bears, for lack of a better term, they don't know how to come back and respond, so they're just kind of like not running. And as people figure it out and get better at it, I'm sure we'll see more people running.
Yeah, and what we're looking at on screen is McLeod showing us what ESS looks like on the map, so you can detect where the money is, and where there's a lot of ratting going on and money collecting in that ESS. It's interesting. It's only in SOV null. It's not in NPC null. So you see some gaps in the usual, some dark spots in the Empire space, but also in nullsec, because some of that is owned by NPCs.
So also, somebody is mentioning another big side effect to this is a lot of people are coming from low-sec from nullsec to high-sec to run missions or mine instead. And the LP value right now has been tanking because of that. We were mentioning earlier that there might be an LP change right around the corner, but the number of people running missions right now is higher than it ever has been. I don't know the mining numbers, but a lot more people are coming into high-sec for content than being in nullsec because they like the security of it.
What's that mean for you, since you run missions all the time?
My profits have dropped.
Well, now how does that affect you? Is it just competition in the marketplace, or?
Yeah, so what's happening is a lot more people are running missions. So that means that more people are buying stuff with loyalty points, which then turns around and means that more stuff is on the market, so the prices go down. And then your ISK per LP, which is the value that we look at when we are comparing loyalty point stores with each other, is that they're overall dropping in value across the board because a lot of more people are running and a lot more people are making unwise decisions on the market. I'm going to get salty here if we continue going on this line, but a lot of people are making unwise decisions like dumping 3 million LP worth of stuff onto the market and expecting that to be doable again. If you do that once, you're going to crash the market. It's going to take a while for that market to bounce back from that. But it's great for people that use faction gear. It's absolutely fantastic. So those that explore and like Sisters gear, or those that like to use Caldari ballistics controls or whatever, that stuff is going to get cheaper with this happening, because there's more people using loyalty points and more people converting loyalty points. But that's like a tertiary side effect of the ESS, is that people are coming into high sec to make ISK, and that's kind of what we predicted, right? You can't safely make ISK doing stuff in the ESS or doing stuff in nullsec routing out there. You're going to find another means to do it, and that's perfectly fine. People can do that and do what they want to do, and there are alternatives to routing in nullsec, and that is fantastic that they exist.
Yeah. It's interesting how the world has changed from 3 years ago, 2 years ago. It's a completely different place. Well, Ron, have you had any experience with ESS, or are you busy with the war?
Yeah, no, I've been playing around with it. I think it's just another mechanic for, those mean high secers to oppress the poor null-sec farmers trying to
make a living.
I think it's great. I think it's great, man. What I've seen, the meta, because, obviously, like, the big thing is filaments in combination with this, right? So using a filament, whatever system you are, look for the nearest one with ESS and hit it. And then wait 15 minutes and then filament out. So just kind of like hopping around the map, right? And then the second thing that I see is it's either skewed one way or the other. I think the only exception is like frat space, where they will just keep up shipping, right? But I see like one person trying to rob, and there's like 10 defenders. And then the person trying to rob, gets irritated. And then I'll see 10 people robbing and one defender or no defenders. Because when you go to the gate, you can descan, right, to see what's there. And, maybe one or two ships go to the ESS, and then they see Bjorn's bank robbers there, 10 or 15 ships, and they're like, we're good.
Yeah, one of the things I liked hearing, though, is a lot of the guys that would be bank robbers are actually getting killed by the law. There's a new sheriff in town. Mm-hmm. So they've been dying, too. It's not just like they're going around raiding everything and taking it, and it's lopsided. It's definitely created a win-lose scenario for everybody. So I like hearing that instead of it being lopsided.
And the meta will evolve, right? The meta will evolve. It'll, it's phantasms or nightmares or, whatever sort of afterburner kind of spicy ship. And, it'll evolve and it'll be fun. But I think the one thing I really enjoy the most about it is that it's getting defense fleets, subcap defense fleets, more involved. And I think that's really great. And I'm really happy to see a lot more of that.
And that's something you're very familiar with, right? Scrambling defense fleets to...
but mostly like, capitals, right? Like supers and caps. And, the subcaps would just be, for tackle, right? But with this, it's pure subcap, right? So it's pure like small gang. So the standing fleets are more like, roaming groups of 5 or 10 sheriffs, right? And they're just, how fast can you get to said system? If someone, has an ESS alert, well, now they have 5 minutes, right, to assemble and get to that specific system, or it's a wash.
Right. All right. McLeod, if you might put that picture up, some beautiful image that came over here from Ron, and we'll wrap up with this last part. It looks like the Dread's actually getting doomsdayed off the field. So when those Titans came in, one thing we did miss was just how fast they were cleared off. Why don't you tell us what happened there, Ron? this is in DTAC W Delve.
Yep. This is right next door to us. And it was, from what I understand, it was just an accident. The guy was dual boxing or triple boxing, and he hit warp to gate on the wrong client. And he had an interceptor, and he also had a Titan, and he warped to the gate, in his Titan. And
he jumped with his interceptor and warped the gate in his Titan.
Yeah, and cheers to Imperium. Like, that was a strong flash forum. That was almost 500 people. Like, it was a strong flash forum.
Oh, we didn't know that. 500 dreads or 500 people? 500
total, and then I think it was like 750 from our side.
Oof.
So, I mean, it was a big flash forum. It was very, very quick.
Oh, that's much bigger than we thought. So Dreads made easy work of him, right? Like, he was gone quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he had like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, if that.
So he was unsaved. Was anybody else destroyed? Was there any other casualties?
I think the initial Legacy Eagle fleet went in, and a couple of them got hazed by the Serbs and the others. But then, a couple of minutes later, then we were able to bring in more people.
Yeah. All right. So Billy says they weren't flash forming. They were already in system. There was 300 of them shooting a Rataru.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, which makes sense. All right, cool. Well, it was a good little bit of action while we were on air. And we also are now going at the same time as the Alliance tournament. We want to send you over there. If you're watching this live, if you're listening to this recorded, you already know who won the Alliance tournament. Ron, thanks for coming by and giving us a picture. And that raid was fantastic. Thank you.
Sure, man.
Oh, before we go, Ron, do you have anything that you wanted to talk about? Hello?
Well, since the last time we talked about Northern Esoteria, we had that really big fight that night over the Fortizar. And so we killed their Fortizar that night, and it was 3 a.m. to like 5 a.m. Reminiscent of the Winter War. And then our Keepstar anchored uncontested, and at the same time, Bastion anchored another Fortizar in the same system, and we killed that one right after. So,
really?
Yeah, and it's all been fun. It's all been great. Been getting good fights, and since Init has redeployed over there, we've been paying special attention to them, and it's been a lot of fun. And then even today, Carmen FC'd a fleet on the OTAC-O iHub, which is in Northern Esso, and there were some dreads dropped and some dreads died, and that was good fun too. I only caught the very end of that, but all just good work.
Well, that is progress on your part. This is test defending Esoteria. If you took down that was their initial base, right? The Bastion's initial.
Yeah. And I think we'd missed it twice before. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so now you have taken it out. You put down a Keepstar. I didn't know that. And has that online, or is that just anchored? Or?
Yeah, that was the big one that just happened. We just put it in YZ. No, I'm thinking of the other one.
T5Z?
Yeah, we just put down T5Z.
So the Keepstar.
That one anchored uncontested, yeah. Right next to 1DQ.
Okay, yeah. I'm following. I thought you actually put a Keepstar in Esoteria, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of that. Okay.
Oh, no, we have Keepstars all throughout that area up there. That creates like a super capital highway all the way up for us. And those haven't been touched.
Gotcha. All right. So you guys having some success in Esoteria, and then, of course, everything really is focused on this Keepstar here. I think it's very interesting that Gobbins came out and said that Fountain was on the menu. I think Villy's always maintained that at some point Fountain would be back on the menu, but with Initiative now deployed to Esoteria, it's going to make them have to choose. Are they going to be in Esoteria? Are they going to defend Fountain?
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting stuff. This war has totally delivered. I know people said, like, there's no war going on at the beginning of it. And I thought, well, yeah, not on paper, but there's definitely a lot of, like, stuff that's happening. And what was going on in that lull before, the Keepstars started dropping last month, from July to last month, was really the construction of a railroad system that allows you to move all these assets in safety. And that is those Keepstars, those chains of Keepstars were being built during the quiet times in the war, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, and the quiet times are mainly the timers. There's so many structures, right? Like that those just don't happen overnight. They take days and days and days, right? So it's from the outside, it looks like, oh, hey, yeah, this is boring. There's nothing going on. But, inside, it's like, hey, we're hitting 15 timers a day. We're hitting 25 timers a day.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah. It's a good thing there's a lot of you. All right. Thanks, Ron. And
Thank you.
Thanks, Hateless and Elise. And of course, McLeod showed you all those great photos, got you some live footage, always on the ball.
I stole that screenshot. It is absolutely amazing.
Beautiful screenshot too by Ron there. That's all we have today. I want to say thanks to all of the people that have shown up to watch live. We're going to now send you over to the Alliance tournament, and we will see you next week on Talking Stations Weekend Report. And if you want more of Talking in Stations, we deliver in-game now. So sign up for the mail list, TIS News, and you'll get weekdays, you'll get a morning paper with a summary of the news. And if you want more than that, you're always welcome to watch our YouTube channel. We post a daily show for Eve News every Monday through Friday. We take Saturday off. We need a rest. But thank you guys for hanging around, and we will see you next time on Talking in Stations.
Thanks for having me, Matt Earl.
Oh, yeah. We need to talk about that content creation stuff. I was trying to get a group rate.